let's just turn off the original logo. When we orbit around, we can see that the top and the bottom are white. Control Z to undo and go back to the original spot. Now let's try to mask this C letter so that it sits on the front side. And we'll do that by duplicating this, rename this to C, and let's just mask this around, kind of like that. And what we need to do is switch this into a 3D layer as well. So let's just click there. And now if we orbit around, we can see that it is right there in the exact same spot. Now let's go ahead and duplicate all of these layers so we can have a cube on the right side as well. And to do that, we can select all of these layers, duplicate them, Control D, and we'll deselect the front side, parent all of those to this, and just so we can see them better, let's just switch these to cyan and these bottom ones to maybe orange. And now all of these are parented, so what we're gonna do is set the anchor point to be on the left side of this front side layer, so Control and snap to there. And on this front side, since the anchor point is on the other side, when we copy the position and paste it to the one that we just duplicated, it'll just snap right there. And seeing as all these layers are parented to this front side layer, now they all shift to the right side and everything is pixel perfect. Now, of course, we need to change the colors. So let's start with the front side, add a fill layer to this, make this white. The top side should be black. So let's set that to black, copy the fill, paste it on the bottom side, and then copy the fill from the front side and paste it to the back side. And now when we rotate and spin around, you can see what's going on. Now let's duplicate our C letter, rename this to N, and bring the mask all the way over, and everything should be fine. Yep. Okay, now once we have all of these layers set up, let's go ahead and do some rigging so we can control all of these objects using just 2 nulls. Now let's start off by creating a new null object. So go up to Layer, New Null. Let's name this Left Side Controller. We have to switch it to a 3D layer. And now what we need in this case is to put the anchor point at the center of this left box, both vertically and horizontally, but also in Z space. And so this is what we're gonna do. Let's select the front side, hit Control-Alt-Home. This will center the anchor point to the front side layer. Hit P to bring up the position and just copy the position, paste it to the null. So now it's centered to the front side. And then next, let's say select the left side, hit Control-Alt-Home for that, and this will center the anchor point to that left side. And then hit P to bring up the position, and we'll only copy the Z value. So copy that, bring the position for the left side controller, and paste it to that. And now it should be right in the center of the entire left cube. Now what we're gonna do is just select all of these left side layers, parent them to the left side controller, and now when we rotate the null, everything rotates with it. Let's now duplicate the left side controller, rename this right side controller, and we're gonna do pretty much the same thing. So find this, Control-Alt-Home, center the anchor point, copy the position and paste it to it. Center the anchor point for the left side, hit P, copy the value, and just paste it here. Now let's link all of these right side layers to the right side controller. Then we'll select all of these layers, hit the Shy button, and then lock them and just click the Hide Shy Layers button. And this will clean up our composition, and then we only have to worry about these 2 controllers and we got a clean looking composition. We can even lock the background. Now before we move on to the animation part, let's turn on our original logo layer, hit Q or just click this button here to bring up the rectangle tool, for example, and let's just mask around this cartoon word, duplicate this, double click on the mask and bring it over, and we'll just name these network and cartoon, and we'll switch them to 3D layers and parent them to their respective controllers. And then let's go back to the camera, hit C to bring up the camera tool, and maybe just zoom out, so something like that. And now let's move on to the animation part. First off, let's hide these 2 words since we're not going to be seeing them up until the end. And then select both of these and hit R to bring up the rotation. And in this case, we're going to be animating the X rotation. So let's turn on the stopwatch for both of these for the X rotation. And let's set the initial rotation to maybe something like that. So 270. And what we'll do is invert these. So for the one on the left, we'll just set this to minus 270. And let's move over to say 10 frames, set a keyframe there. And let's just rotate this. So it's gonna spin this way. Now what we're gonna do is instead of landing on this side, we're gonna overshoot a bit. And after 5 frames, it just goes back to that side. So let's set it to 90 degrees here. And as for here, let's just set it to 80 degrees. So it pretty much overshoots by 10 degrees. And we'll do the same thing for the left side, but in reverse. to -80 and then goes back to -90. And then we'll move another 5 frames. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll set a keyframe. And this is going to be our breathing room. And then another 5 frames. Set a keyframe there. And this is going to be our anticipation. So what's going to happen here is instead of instantly starting to rotate the way that they're supposed to rotate, they're going to sort of go in reverse a bit and then start rotating in the direction that they're supposed to be rotating. We're in this spot. And when we go forward by 5 frames, we want to overshoot. So we go back to 80 and then let's move over by 10 frames and let's start spinning this. And maybe we don't go over to this spot because that's where we were. Instead, let's skip aside, go back and overshoot to 190, move forward by 5 frames and go back to 180. Let's now do the same thing for the left box. So let's go over to -80, move over, and then rotate this up. Again, let's not go at the side that we were in at the beginning. Let's skip aside, go back. In this case, it should be -190, and then move forward and just set it to -180. And then one last time, we'll just get a bigger anticipation and a bigger overshoot, and we'll just land at the spot that we're supposed to land. So first, let's go over by 5 frames. Like we did before to give it some breathing room, set keyframes. And now instead of going over by 5 frames, let's go over by 10 frames. So hold down shift and hit page down. By the way, we can use page down and page up to move forward or backwards by 1 frame. And then holding down shift, we can move forward or backwards by 10 frames. And here we're going to have an even bigger anticipation. So maybe something like 30 pixels. So that would mean 150 and -150 on the other side. And so let's just focus on the right side cube. It goes upwards for the anticipation. So that means it has to go downwards for the rotation. So let's go for like a 360-degree spin. And then finally overshoot by 30 degrees. And then move forward again and bring it back to 0. Let's do the same thing for the left side. So now it should spin upwards, overshoot to -30. And then go back to the last keyframe and set it to 0. Now from the anticipation keyframe, let's move forward by 20 frames. Bring these over, and then finally for the last keyframe, let's move forward by 10 frames. And I'm thinking maybe even 30 frames for this middle keyframe. And let's select all of these, keyframe assistant, easy ease. And I'm thinking these last 2 keyframes could be set to 75%. So let's right click keyframe velocity, set them to 75 by 75, and maybe even just push this by 20 frames. And what we'll do next is scale these up first 10 frames. So let's go over to 10 frames, hit S to bring up the scale for both of these, set a keyframe there, go back to 0, and then set them to 0. And let's just easy ease those. And maybe even 75% these last ones. By the way, you can go over to keyframe velocity, set it there. But I'm going to use this flow plugin that I have, which is a paid third-party plugin, and this allows you to like save these keyframe velocity presets. Now let's go over to the end and find the part where these 2 words are going to come in. So let's just turn these on now and let's see. So at this frame, so let's trim it there. So select the cartoon layer, hold down Alt and open square bracket, and then move in time, see where the network word pops in. So right here, trim it there. Let's just set this network word to be white so that we can see it when it's underneath this box. So let's add a fill effect, make it white. And then one last detail that I added in the original logo animation was at the end here, these boxes sort of come up and then they fall down and rest in the spot that they are right now. And I'll demonstrate that by going over to the original animation that I did. So if we zoom in here, you can see when they finally spin, they sort of go upwards a bit and they sort of float in the air. As soon as they spin downwards, the position of the entire layers just comes down as well. So let's go back. Let's duplicate one of these nulls, Control D. Hit U to bring up the keyframes, and let's just delete both of these, and we'll bring back the position, parent both of these to that controller. So let's rename this to like extra position end control. And what we'll do is let's click U to bring up the keyframes on one of these controllers and see where the highest spot is.